Hello, good evening to us all once again. My name is Deborah Foridate, and I work with the Institute of ICT Professionals Ghana as a digital skills training supervisor. Today, we will be going through a very important topic, which is learning through play. And I'm sure most of us have heard the word play, and we all have our own ideas of what play is when we hear it. So, just a few minutes, I want us to put in the chat what comes to mind when you hear the word play. What do you think about? What comes to mind? Or what occurs to you when you hear the word play? Can we can we put something in the chat? Um, What comes to mind when you hear the word play? So whilst we are doing that, let's go on. We wouldn't want to waste our time since we've already spent a few minutes here. So first of all, let's look at what play in learning is. Okay, let's look at what play in learning is. There are three things that we would want to think about when we think about play in learning. So first, if you are talking about, sorry, a moment. Sorry, it started raining all of a sudden here. So let's go on. First, when we think about play in learning, we want to think about three words. That is, it should be purposeful. Okay. What does it mean by purposeful? You do not just engage a child in learning just for the fun of it or just for the sake of it, but then it should lead to an end goal. So, for example, if a child is learning how to count numbers, what is the end goal of the child learning how to count numbers? Is it just to know how to count numbers, or is it to build up on a topic that is coming up? For example, if the child learns to count numbers, they can then learn to add and multiply and subtract and divide. They can then go on to learn more advanced maths. They can apply to their personal lives, which is also very important. So when you send the child to go and buy something, they can calculate the exact cost of the item they've gone to buy. They can estimate how much change that should be given to them after they have bought the item. So that is just an example. Why do you want the child to learn a particular thing? Why are you engaging in that learning process? And we should know that playfulness in learning does not only apply to children, okay? It applies to us as adults as well. We can actually play whilst learning, and it makes it very much more very meaningful. So one, when you are talking about play in learning, it should be purposeful. Secondly, it should be meaningful. What does it mean by being meaningful? So how do you relate to it? Does it mean something to you? Do you have a personal interest in it? So let's go back to another example. Um, the child is learning counting once again, or let's choose another example. The child is learning parts of speech, or the child is learning adjectives and adverbs. How do you teach them as an educator or even as a parent when you're helping them with their homework? How do you teach them so that it becomes something that they can relate to? It becomes something that means something to them that they can use in real life. So you are teaching adjectives and adverbs. You can take an adjective that relates to a recent experience that they had, or something that relates to maybe their favorite cartoon or their favorite food, something that relates to what they are already used to. And then use that in the process of learning. And then the third thing we would like to look at is it should be an active process. Okay, it should be an active process. It shouldn't be, you shouldn't leave it to chance. You should take control of it. If you want the child to learn something, you have to think and plan how you are going to let the child learn that thing. If you are going to engage in learning, even yourself, it has to be an active process. You do not just start learning for learning's sake. You do not just um you do not just let it's like letting the wind blow you in any direction at all. So you have control over it. It's something that you are actively engaging in. We are learning and then applying. So these are the three things that we are looking at. Playful learning is purposeful, it's meaningful, and then it's an active process. Now, we would want to go on to the characteristics of playful learning. So how would you identify that this is playful learning taking place? How would you even be able to engineer a playful learning? How would you be able to design one if you do not know the characteristics you should look out for, if you do not know what you should, the things that you should include in the designing of a playful learning experience? So it's very important to know the characteristics, and there are 5 characteristics. So a playful learning experience should be actively engaging. Okay, it should be socially interactive, it should be iterative, it should be joyful, and it should be meaningful. We are going to pick each and every one of them and then dive a little bit into them. So when we say actively engaging, let's take a child that's a toddler that is playing with maybe some coins that you have on the floor, or your remote control, or like a shoe that is lying around, or an item that you have left around, right? And then they take it, they are fidgeting with it, they are trying to um they are trying to decipher how does this thing work, like how does it look this way, trying to find out if they can even take it apart, put it together. They are actively engaging in it, they are really focused, they are invested. So sometimes they may not even be able to know or realize what is going on in their environment. You may call them several times before they are able to you may call them several times before they realize that, oh, there's a whole new world going on around us. So in actively engaging, or in discerning whether an experience is playful or a learning is playful, one thing we must look out for is that it is actively engaging. So you find a group of kids gathered around, focused on one thing, trying to solve a puzzle, an experiment. All of those things show that they are actively engaged in what they are doing. And then secondly, it must be socially interactive. So in this process, they are sharing ideas, they are discussing with their friends, they are getting ideas from their friends. So let's say that they are creating an experiment. You as an educator, or yes, and as an educator, you have given them an assignment to go and do, a practical work. And to get a better response, or to get like a better feedback or a better solution to whatever problem we've given them to go and solve, it will be best to go and interact with other friends, to go and interact with their parents, their family members, whoever is around them. They are discussing their ideas. I think this should be this way. No, I think you should do it this way. So as they are interacting, even in a classroom setting or even in the house as parents, how do we model this? You give them something to do. You do not just leave them to it. Go and wash the bowls and then you leave them to it, especially if it is the first time they are doing such. It will be good to be with them, ask them questions. Why do you think we do it this way? I really love interacting with kids, and you should hear the things, the way they think. Like, you should know the way they think, the kind of ideas that they bring on board, and you'll be learning a lot of things. So let's say in washing bowls in the house, you are engaging your toddler or your child for the first time in doing that, you want them to learn. So the first time or the first few times, you do it with them. You're washing, you're asking them, why do you think we have to put this amount of soap in it? Or even in putting the soap, you can tell them, I'm putting this amount or put this amount. And then it can trigger some discussions. Or in washing clothes, children can try to be too knowing sometimes. So you tell them, do this, and then they feel that they are doing it the right way as they should, instead of doing it the way you're asking them to. So instead of just instructing them, you can interact with them. Okay, we are doing this. Why do you think I'm asking you to pay attention to the collar? Or why do you think I'm asking you to pay attention to the armpits? Or why do you think I'm asking you to do it this way? And then you get the ideas. You also give your ideas, and then you are discussing. When we come to a classroom setting, a teacher is about to introduce a topic. Before you even go on to start the topic, you can just have a few minutes, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, discussing the topic, getting what their ideas are about the topic before you go on in. And that's social interaction. That's getting ideas from their mates. They also sharing their ideas, getting ideas from you. You also getting their ideas. It also creates a playful learning experience. It makes them engrossed. It doesn't become something that is just happening, right? You don't just come and introduce a topic, teach, and then go. That is not playful learning. So one thing is that it must be socially interactive. And then it must be iterative. And this is how I want to state this. You should encourage mistakes in children. When I say encouraging mistakes in children, it doesn't mean telling them to, like, overlooking their mistakes or glossing over their mistakes or making light of their mistakes, especially if they are very serious mistakes. But then as parents or as educators, we tend to be sometimes very strict when it comes to children making mistakes. So you told them to pour something and they ended up spilling it, or they ended up making a mess, or you told them to do something, they ended up doing it another way. Instead of being in, like, your instinct being screaming at the child, or sometimes hurling abusive words at them, which actually sounds like brings down their confidence level. Why not look at it in another way? So what can you learn from these mistakes? Help them learn from their mistakes. So in that way, they are more eager to try. Okay, so you tried, you made a mistake. It does not just become a mistake for nothing. It becomes something that you used to learn. So you teach them that, you help them to iterate, to do it over and over and over and over again, making their mistakes, tweaking it until they get the final result, until they get something that they can work with. Okay, so you've given an assignment to a child to go and draw something. They come back, it's looking some way. It's not looking the way it's supposed to do. It's not supposed to, it's not looking the way it's supposed to be. Okay. Sometimes instead, iterative can be, instead of just accepting it like that as, oh, this is a child, they'll learn as they go. It can be pointing out the specific mistakes they have made and then asking them to clean and do it, and then redo it. Even as a parent, I am not a parent yet, but I'm an older sister to some children. And there's this particular child, she's in class 3. So she brings assignments and then I'll be helping her do it. And sometimes she thinks that I am overdoing it. But then you realize that over the days or over the weeks, over the years, she's improving in her studies. So she writes a letter, maybe the letter R, it's not really clear. I could decide to overlook it, but then no, I don't do that because I believe in iteration. I believe in doing and doing and doing until you get it the right way. So clean the R and do it well. Clean this and then do it this way. Write it within this. This is how it should be. Or what do you think about it? You discuss it, you help them do it and do it until they get the right thing. When they make mistakes, please don't scream at them. Please don't let them feel like there's no space for making mistakes. So in my class, I usually tell my students, this place, don't be scared of making mistakes. I will not beat you. I will not chew you. Nobody will do anything to you. So just be open-minded and be ready to learn. Because even me, being the teacher here, I am learning from them. Okay. So iteration is also a characteristic of playful learning. Now we have looked at 3 characteristics of playful learning. The first one is joyful. And sometimes we usually mistaken this for excitement or laughter, or if you are saying the child is really joyful during the learning process, it means that they are happy, like physically happy. You can see a smile on their face while they are learning, they are laughing, and all of those things. But then I hate to burst your bubble. Joyful can look a different way. Joyful can look like a child being so focused on what they are learning that they do not want to stop until they get it right. Okay, that can be joyful. Joyful can look like a child solving a math problem. You come in the room for the first time, they don't have a smile on their face, so you not even know they are being joyful there. But the fact that, how do you know they are being joyful? Okay, Amma, come, your food is ready. Oh, Daddy, I'm trying to solve this. I'll be done very soon. I'll finish right now and come and eat. Or you tell them to leave what they are doing to come and do something else, and they are unwilling to leave it. Like they are evidently going through problems, like they are going through challenges, right? But they are not willing to give up. They are not willing to leave it to go and do something else. They want to try and try and try until they get it. And that reminds me of my experience in the secondary school. So whilst in the secondary school, my favorite subjects were actually mathematics and then accounting. And I did not love those subjects because they were easy, because they were not easy. There were other easy subjects like social studies and then English and those reading subjects, right? But what made me joyful whenever I'm solving maths or whenever I'm solving an accounting problem, like balance sheets, profit and loss, those two, is trying to figure out a solution to the problem. I actually enjoyed the process. I enjoyed the feeling I had when I finally figured the problem. When the balance sheet is not balancing. Right now I know that there are different names for them, but that was how it was called in our time. When it's not balancing and you are trying to figure out, what did I miss? What did I exclude? What did I add that wasn't supposed to be added? What did I put at the wrong place? Right, trying to figure out, and especially working with someone, and then you're arguing about it should not be this, it should be this, it should not be this. Like that process actually gave me this kind of joy that I could not describe. And you will not see a smile on my face while doing this, so you may think I am not enjoying it. But then the fact that in me, I have that um like I have that feeling of satisfaction. Yes, I have that satisfaction when I'm done solving the problem. Finally, I find that problem. Or sometimes you may not even end up finding the problem on that day or even in the week. It may take a long time. But then the fact that you are still willing to go on and go on and go on, that can be described as joyful. So when we look here, we see that driven by the love of figuring things out, even when it's hard, and we can encourage that in children in the way we teach them. So they are solving a math problem, they get it wrong. You don't hate them. You don't insult them. You don't call them names. You don't even scream at them. It prevents them from loving that subject. And some students will say, I really hate this subject. And then you go and find out, and it's because of a teacher, the teacher teaching it, okay? Or it's because of an experience that happened. So sometimes we should try and consider all those situations so that we do not end up driving a child away from a particular subject or um a particular activity at home. And then the final one, which we have, is meaningful. Okay. When you are teaching a child something, it shouldn't be abstract. You should give real life explanations or real life things that they can connect it to. So, an example, let's say you are teaching, as an educator, you are teaching them about the process that water goes through, it evaporates, it condenses, it becomes rain, and all of those processes. So you are introducing your students to that concept. Instead of just being abstract, there's no picture, there's no video, there's nothing. there's nothing that they can relate to, they can feel, they can hold, they can relate to, or they can experience. There's nothing they have experienced that you can relate to. It actually makes learning difficult. So how do you connect it to real life experience so that they actually feel that, oh, so this is what it means. So they have experienced rainfalls before. You can use that to explain, okay, do you know how rainfall actually happens? Like sometimes you'll be there and then it rains all of a sudden, like it just happened, right? So in explaining that, you can tell them, so sometimes you see a puddle of water on the floor and then the sun is shining. There's like on sunny days. The sun or the heat from the sun actually makes the water evaporate into the air. So they go in vapor or in air form or however you explain it. They go up into the sky and then it condenses into rain, and then you see that now it falls whenever it has to fall. So you use that explanation to, or you use that scenario to explain to them. It's something that they can actually relate to. What other example can I use? So let's say you are teaching them English. You've taught them new words. How do you connect it to real life? So you can tell them to talk about one day, one of their bad days, or a day that they will never forget, or they should they should describe something to you. Or even when they come to class in the morning, you can ask them, how was your day? Like, how was your evening? It's something I usually do with my classes. So when they come to class, the first few minutes, we'll discuss, how was your day? How was your week? If that was the first time we are meeting in the week, what happened? Usually you ask them, how was your week? They'll say good. They'll be giving you one-line answers. So you go on, you ask them, what made your week fine? As an English teacher, right, you've taught them new words. You want them to use those words more in communication. So then they go on to describe, okay, we did this. We went for a fun fair. Oh, wow, where did you go to? And then they'll mention the places. We went here, we went here. Oh, I've heard that this place is really exciting. What did you go and do there? And then they give more explanations. So that is an example as an English teacher that you can use. As a math teacher, you are teaching fractions. How do you relate fractions to real life situations? So, you have an apple. You are sharing it amongst your students. So you can even call the students forward. Okay, Kojo, come. Um, Yao, come. George, come here. Belinda, come. So you call them, right? And then you put the oranges before them. And then you tell them, okay, there's only one orange here, but then I want each and every one of you to get an equal part of it. So how do you think I have to share this for every one of you to get an equal part? Now, if you had asked that same question in an abstract manner, like if you are sharing this amongst this number of people, how many will each person get? And then compared to they seeing the orange, they're feeling it, they're being involved in the process. So it's something that means something to them and it helps in the learning process. Well, our parents are not left out. How do we apply meaningfulness in our homes? We are teaching the child how to tell the truth, or we are teaching the child how to be responsible, right? You don't just say, you have to be responsible, you have to clean your room, you have to do this. How do you relate it so that it becomes something that is meaningful to them? So you can engage them in a conversation. Do you see that day that you felt sick, you had to take it to the hospital, you did not really feel good, like you were vomiting, you were not feeling, you could not even eat your favorite food. Do you know what causes these things? And then you tell them, you do not keep your room clean. You do not clean up the mess when it pours. And then it invites bacteria. It invites this. You explain it to them in a way that they can experience it for themselves or they have experienced it before. And in that way, it aids better learning. So I already gave the example of my math and accounting story in school. One other example I would like to touch on is sometimes sometimes as an educator, you be in class. I am a coding instructor. So sometimes I'll be teaching them coding. And then you realize that on some days you ask a question and then there'll be rapid answers. Like, let's say I ask them, we need a certain block to let the sprite move from point A to point B. Where will I find that code block? Then this person will say events, this person will say motion, this person will say, like, they'll not even give room for you to say this is correct or wrong. Like, people will just be rattling answers, right? That can also show that there is joyful learning. That can also show joyfulness in learning. Yes, I wanted to use that in joyfulness in learning. So they are so eager, they want to figure it out, and they are giving their answers. They are not willing to stop answering to listen to the final answer and all of those things. And sometimes you have to call their attention. Just chill. Just take your time. Take your time. Think about the question. You need your sprite to move from point A to point B. Mind you, I'm sharing my screen. I'm showing them from this point to this point. I even go ahead to give them examples. I need you to move from the kitchen to the corridor. What do you think I have to tell you? What would I say to you for you to start moving? Imagine you're a robot and you do anything I ask you to do. You don't do anything outside of what I ask you to do. You do exactly what I ask you to do. So in relating it to real life experience, it becomes meaningful to them. In making it exciting, it becomes joyful. They do not want to leave. They do not want to stop learning. And then they give one answer. You do not berate them for giving the wrong answer. You do not punish them for giving the wrong answer. You tell them, okay, it's close. No, it's not that. Think about it. Okay, how do you do it this way? And then they'll do it over and over. That's iteration. And then they're actually in a classroom setting. They are sharing their ideas. This person says this person says that. It's registering in their minds. If Amma says it this way, Kofi may want to say something, but when he hears Amma saying it may spark something in their brains and they say, okay, I think it may be this instead. And then actively engaging, they are focused on whatever lesson is going on. So that's an example of how you can engage them with all these characteristics of playful learning. So let's go on. And please, the chat is opened, okay? The chat is opened. If you have anything to say, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and then I'll address them when the session is over. And then we have benefits of playful learning. You may be wondering, why do I even need to think about playfulness in learning? What benefit am I going to get? Or what benefit is my child going to get? Or what difference is it going to make if I include play in learning as compared to my normal teaching method, right? One, it builds critical thinking and problem solving. So the part about iteration, when they get it wrong and you do not actually punish them for it, but you encourage them to go on to make their mistakes and find the right answer. In that process of iteration, they're actually thinking critically. They'll have to think critically to be able to arrive at the right answer. So they did it this way. Oh, it did not produce the right result. Okay, then let me make it this way. Let me add this bit to it. Okay, no, let me take this out of it. So whilst they are doing that, they are thinking too. Like a lot of things is going on in their mind. They may not be able to communicate whatever processes that is going on in their mind. The same processes that will be going on in my mind when I'm solving maths or accounting, or the same processes that may be going on in your mind when you are doing something that you actually enjoy, is what may be going on in their mind. And they are going through different sorts of processes, putting things together, taking things away, and finally arriving at the solution. So it fosters critical thinking. And then problem solving in the meaningful part, if you relate it to real life problems, it actually helps them to solve problems. So in the future, if they have to share an orange among a group of people, they do not have to wait for it to come and share for them every time because you taught them in real terms how to learning fractions using like that real life situation, sharing an orange or sharing bananas or whatever they are sharing. They are solving a problem here. Or you related the water process, the water evaporation and condensation process to what actually happens in the environment. So when they grow up and then we are having shorter rainfalls, like rain is not falling in its season and all of those things, that is how scientists are able to come up with problems, because over the years, they've built up their problem solving and critical thinking skills through iteration, for example, and through meaningfulness. Okay, so learning through play, one, it builds up their critical thinking and problem solving skills. Two, it encourages creativity and innovation. So one, someone who has to go through the process of learning, who has to be socially engaged, who has to iterate, especially iteration, okay, it will take a lot of creativity. It will take a lot of innovation. They'll have to come up with their own ideas. They may have to tweak things that in a way that they have never experienced before, depending on the outcome of whatever they are engaged in. And that is innovation. Okay, so innovation is when they're able to come up with a solution that they may not have experienced before, and it actually works. So in this process of learning, playful learning, it helps build up their creativity and innovation. And then definitely they'll have to communicate their ideas, right? Especially in the socially engaged part, where they communicate their ideas to their friends. So this one says this, they learn to disagree, right? They learn to disagree without like finding faults. They learn to share their ideas. They learn to accept disagreements without finding fault with the person. So it develops their communication skills and social skills as well, compared to someone who is learning in isolation, who is learning without any friends or any colleagues. This person learns to communicate their ideas. They learn to take feedback gracefully, no matter what kind of feedback it is. And they learn to implement that feedback in their problem solving. So this also helps them develop their communication and social skills. And then it helps them improve their confidence and independence. So imagine you just I don't want to say just allow, because it's not like you are not monitoring them or observing them. You'll be observing them here. You'll be observing what they are doing, picking data from what they are doing and trying to use it to develop a better playful experience for them. So you are observing them, but you are allowing them, you are giving them room to make their mistakes, to implement their ideas. Okay. Sometimes, so the one example I can give, there's one student I teach privately. Sometimes learning can be just watching on as he is going around, like trying to bringing this code and it's not working and taking it back, and then bringing another code, it's not working and taking it back, like figuring out which particular code will work here without interrupting, without, sometimes I may be tempted to say, no, Etienne, this is what you need to bring. But sometimes the learning takes place when you keep quiet and observe from the background. So in doing that, you build up their confidence. When they're able to do it, they become confident that, oh, I can do this. I can actually do this without my teacher's help. I can actually do this without receiving answer from anyone. And then it builds up that confidence and it builds up that independence. And we know that we will not be there forever for our children. As an educator, you will not always be there with your students, especially in the examination hall. You wouldn't be with them. As a parent, we grow old. They may go on to the university, so we may be separated, or life happens and we are not together again. You are not with your children any longer. How do you make sure that they are prepared for the world outside there? How do you make sure that they are independent so that they can think on their own without having to depend on others, without feeling that is my idea good? Can I actually implement this? Does this sound right? Because they are not used to always being told what to do, because you actually helped them in their formative years to build up that confidence and independence through your interaction with them. So learning through play does that. And then it reduces rote learning and memorization without understanding, which is actually something that we have a problem with in Ghana, in Ghana specifically, and in our African countries. Rote learning is something we have been talking about. It's something we have been trying to solve. And even recently, with the students that wrote the WASI, it was in the news that they were jubilating when they finished writing the WASI because some of the questions that came were questions that they had seen beforehand. They were questions that they had seen somewhere, they had solved and solved and solved, and it came and they were so happy about it. They were jubilant. But why don't we work towards a culture where a student doesn't care whether they see a question beforehand before they go into the examination hall? They are going based on understanding, not on true and poor. Okay, and all that can be developed through learning to play, through allowing them to go through those 5 characteristics, iterating. As a teacher, you don't just teach the maths or the English or the science, giving them the answers, saying that do it this way, bring this, do this, do this. You go to class, you talk, tell them everything. You do not allow them to go and do their own research. You do not allow them to contribute what they know. You do not allow them to make mistakes and then think through their mistakes and how they will not make that mistake again, or what they might have done that caused that mistake. In all of those, we have to consider all of those things if we want to totally eliminate rote learning or even reduce it. And then memorization, we have to rather work towards letting them understand the concepts that are being taught. And then the final thing we want to look at is it makes learning sustainable and meaningful. So as I said earlier, you wouldn't need to be there every time for them to learn. Once you are engaging them in playful learning, even when you are not around as a parent, it's all that problem. We usually are worried. If I'm not around, my child is not going to learn. Like they'll spend the whole day in front of the TV or the whole day playing, doing other things instead of realizing that I need to be learning this at this particular time. I learned this in school. I need to revise. I need to go over. I need to think through it. You do not need to worry about this if you engage them in playful learning. So that is what makes it sustainable, right? By themselves, they know that they have to learn. By themselves, they are able to think through problems and bring up solutions. That is also a form of learning. And then it makes it so meaningful to them, which actually improves their learning process. So those are the 6 benefits of playful learning. I'm sure we can also identify some benefits that I might not have mentioned here. If you have any benefits or ideas of other benefits that playful learning has, and based on the understanding of what playful learning is that you have gotten so far, please put them in the chat. And then we would like to look at the process of engaging in playful learning experiences. So this is for you, the teacher, or for you, the parent, as to the student. So the student or your child is going through a playful learning experience. What is the process that you take them through? What process do you go through? So first, you observe. As I mentioned, sometimes it may just be like being in the background and observing how they are interacting with certain objects, how they are answering certain questions that you pose at them. Like over a period, you know that if you ask this person a question like this, they just give you one line answers or one word answers. Okay, you've observed that. Now, as an educator, you go back and then you discuss with your colleagues. So I have noticed that this particular person, when I ask this question or when I ask a question, they just give me one line answer. What do you think might be the problem? I think we should do this. I think we should do that. I think this may be the case. I think maybe a case of low confidence, or maybe it's their English that is not good. So you go and discuss those things with your colleagues. As a parent, you discuss that with your wife, with your husband, with your partner. You discuss that with even a family member, okay, if they are available. And then you discuss, okay, um, Barbara, it's really giving me a headache. Like that one, you are discussing with your partner, right? So it's not like you are discussing with your child. They don't need to hear that they are giving you a headache, but you are free to express yourself when they are not around. Free yourself, okay? So you are discussing, like they're really giving me a headache. I just don't know what to do any longer. I've noticed this. I have noticed that sometimes they throw tantrums. But I've noticed that when I tell them, I have said this several times, when you are leaving the room, clean your room. Every single day I say this, but every single day I come and feel that their room is not cleaned. What else should I do? I just don't know what to do. So in discussing that, you might get some ideas, especially if the person is more experienced, okay, or the person knows more about that topic. Or even if the person may not know, in discussing certain things that you say or certain things that they say may trigger ideas, okay? So first you observe, you discuss, get to know what ideas are about their learning process, okay? And then you make a decision. So based on the observation and discussion, how do you think you can improve their playful learning experience? How do you think, what learning experience can you give them so that they actually clean up their room? Could you do a competition? So one example I can give you, there's this girl in the house I'm staying. She's called Yemisi. I can say she's very playful, very, very playful. She's one of those children that doesn't care about like seriousness. Okay. So how do you engage such a person? You cannot just tell the person go and bath and then they'll listen and go and bath. They'll be playing, they'll say, I'm coming. They'll want to finish whatever they are doing before they go and do that. So I realized that when I come back from work, she has not taken her bath yet. And I tell her, let me see. I'm racing upstairs. Let's see who will be the first person to finish bathing. And then I quickly ran upstairs. I know that she'll finish bathing before me, but I still like engage in that, right? Giving that joy, giving that um focus. And then you see that she'll say, Auntie Debbie, wait for me. And then she'll quickly run into the room, go and bath. And then she'll say, I finished bathing before you. So in that, and then all the time that I've done that, it actually ended in she going to take a bath quickly, not going into the bathroom to actually go and play with the water and the soap and creating foam and all of those things, wasting time. So that's just one way. Okay. That is one way I observed her. I discussed that. Okay. And I also thought about what can I do to actually encourage this girl to be taking her bath frequently. And then I made a decision. So if at a point in time, this is not working any longer because she'll be going and she'll be rising up and realizing that I'll be playing her, I'll find another way. Is it letting her know why it is important for her to be taking her bath? Relating it to actually something that has happened that she knows. She tells me stories about what happens in school, sometimes about her friend that is sick or this or that. You can relate to that. So, do you know your friend that is sick? It might be because of this. Maybe, especially the sickness is relating to personal hygiene. You can use an example like that. And there are so many examples that are bound based on your specific experience. What is important here is that we must be very observant. Okay, let's see what is going on around with our children, with our students at school. Okay, and one important thing, even apart from non-educative experiences, like it's not like just science or maths or subjects learning. Okay, one of the problems we are really experiencing in our schools right now is children spending so much time on social media and being affected by them, for want of a better word, being influenced. Yes, that's the word. Being influenced by them. Okay, so now most children, especially when they grow older bit and they have their own phones, sometimes you don't even give your phone to your child, but they go to school. Now phones are allowed in schools, even if not like by rule or by law. The fact that not most teachers or most educational authorities are not talking about them in a way, it's been allowed in schools. So even if you don't give a phone to your child, they'll go and see their friend's phone. Their friends will be doing things on their phone and they will be exposed to it. How do you engage them in a playful learning experience so that your students stand out? So that your children stand out, so that they know or they keep the things that you're actually teaching them at home. So you're not screaming at them, don't go and look on anybody's phone. You are not like giving just theory. It's like giving theory to them. Don't go and do this. Don't go and do this. When you go to school, learn. No. How can you apply it to a specific situation? How can you make it more meaningful to them? How can you get them to be interested? So we want to now start discussing these things, how we can engage our children in playful learning experience with the things that we've been learning so far, so that we can finally make a decision on how best we design certain learning experiences for them. Okay, so it's not just relating to subject learning, it's not just relating to math and science, and those are traditional learning processes. It also relates to their behavior formation, it relates to their character formation, it relates to their growth, personal growth, to become the kind of individuals we want them to be. Playful learning can be introduced in all those as well. And then sometimes we may also be observing and we may be tempted to say that this person is not engaging in playful learning. But then what we must know is that playful learning are in states or stages. So when you are observing or when someone is learning something for the first time, they may appear to be passive. So they are just watching, they are just listening, they're just looking at what is what is happening. They're not actually engaging, they're not working, they're just looking on as their friends are doing it. Sometimes I experience that in my class, especially with a new student that has joined maybe a new class. They are not yet used to the students in the class. So they might be a bit shy, a bit quiet, or even your children at home. You are discussing a topic with them. They may not be used to that topic. They may not know what the topic is about. So in the first instance or the first time you are talking about it with them, they may be quiet, seem to be passive. Don't be alarmed by that, okay? Just continue observing them. From there, they move to exploring. So when they start building up their confidence a little bit, they start to try things. Okay, I saw that my teacher did this and then this happened. Okay, let me try the same, maybe even doing the same thing, maybe repeating the same thing that they saw happening. Or even a toddler, they have observed their parents doing something in a particular way, always picking the subjects and putting it here. You realize that later you see them that they'll also be doing the same thing, picking the subjects and putting it at the same place. So they start exploring. And then they go on a bit deeper into owning the learning process. So they take charge of their own actions, they start to tweak and then make some changes. So how do we see this in learning in schools? You've introduced a topic to your students, let's say simultaneous equations, and then after in the first time you teach them what simultaneous equations is, you solve questions with them. Now in exploring, they can solve the same questions again. Okay, that is exploring. Then in owning, you can change the questions, like twist the questions a little bit. It's the same simultaneous equation. It's not a question you've done with them before, like you've given them a different scenario. And then in owning, they are able to do it because they understand it. Then in recognizing, they realize the connections between the questions that you have been solving with them. Oh, okay, so this question we did it this way, this question we did this way. This particular question that I've been given, though we haven't done it together, I have been able to realize that this is how simultaneous equations are. And so this is how I can solve it. Okay. In recognizing in our homes as parents, when your child, let's say, spills water on the floor, they realize that maybe they slip and fall or it makes a mess. Or they realize that you clean up when you make a mess on the floor. When you pour water on the floor, you quickly come and clean it. When you spill something, you quickly come and clean it. When you drop something, you pick it up. So in recognizing, they've realized a pattern, right? They've realized connections. Now, when they drop something, even if it's not the same thing that you drop, even if it's not water, if it's not something that you have dropped before, but something else, they quickly have realized and recognized the connection, and they know to pick it up from there. They know to clean up their mess. And then transferring is actually applying it to different learning situations and going on to even teach others. So let's not be alarmed when it seems that our child is not really engrossed in what is going on or not really participating in the learning process, or our students are not. Let's be aware of these states of play and then consciously help them move from one stage to the other. So we want to end with how each and every one of us can apply playful learning in our various activities. So as an educator, you can ask open-ended questions. So instead of asking, how was your week? That they'll say, it was good, it was fine. Rather ask, what happened this week? Okay, then they'll give you something. Then you ask them, okay, so this thing that happened, how did it make you feel? That is an open-ended question. A question that will make them say more, will make them like talk about what went through in their minds, how they felt, rather than giving one-line answers or one-word answers. So those are open-ended questions. And then in giving them assignments and projects, you use assignments, you use project-based assignments. So you can tell them, we are experiencing so much rainfall in this season. You've taught them about those things in science already. Now, you are relating it to a real life experience, telling them that we have this problem. We need a solution. We need something to solve this problem. How do we go about that? That is a project for them to go and work on. They go and think about it, they go and discuss it, they go and observe the different situations, and then they come with their own solutions. And that is how you apply playful learning experience. And then the last thing I want us to talk about is encouraging reflection. So after they've made a mistake or after they have gone through the process, don't just leave it like that and think that they have finished learning. Follow up with a question. Okay, what did you learn when you experienced this? When you put your hand in the fire and it burnt you, what did you learn from that? You don't just keep quiet, even though you may have told them, don't put your hand in the fire, don't put, and they went ahead to put their hand in the fire, or they went ahead to do something you had told them not to do. Instead of even berating them or insulting them or telling that I told you not to do this, why not follow up? What did you notice? Like, what happened when you did this? Okay, from this experience, how did you feel about the experience? Okay, are you going to do this again? And then they'll give you the answer. Sometimes they might surprise you with the depth of answers that they give. Okay, so as educators, let's try and do these three things. And there are lots more that we can do, but I just want to touch on these three. And then as parents, in our everyday conversations, you ask them, you see something, okay, what do you think you can build with this? Actually, building stuff improves the minds of children. So you encourage them to build. There are stones somewhere. They can pick up the stones. When they are playing with the stones, do not prevent them unless the area they are playing is unhygienic. Okay. But even that, if you can observe them, as soon as they are done, you go and wash their hands quickly so that they don't put it in their mouth or they don't go and eat with it. So encourage them to be building, even shoes or like pencils or pens or something, random objects lying around. They can build stuff with it. You encourage them to do it. You allow mistakes and messes. It's also is part of the learning process. Okay. They pour water on the floor. You do not insult them. You do not scream at them. They may fall. You do not insult them or be too hard on them. They are learning from that. Next time, they will not go and do the thing that made them fall. Next time, they are not going to spill the water any longer because they know that, okay, it is because I poured it this way. That is why I poured. That is why it made a mess. So they learn from their mistakes. And then sometimes you join in the play, okay? It's not just about dominating or trying to it's not trying to like engineer how they should play. Like they should do it this way. Don't do it this way. No, no. Sometimes you should not be that strict. Sometimes you should even join in it. Okay. Today I was playing with a doll in the house, a whole mini. I was mimicking taking care of a child, combing the hair, washing the hair, and all of those things. And the child was there laughing at me. And she went to go and bring her doll too. So sometimes in doing those things, you just also join in the play and make it fun. And that actually and that encourages the child to learn. And we can apply that in certain situations where the child is not willing to learn. Sometimes it takes you modeling it for them to learn. Okay. And then finally, we want to look at governing bodies. How can they include playful learning in policies? So they can observe, they can get feedback from teachers, from heads of institutions, our governments and governing bodies. They can get this data and then they can include play-based learning in the curriculum, in the various subjects. So how do we redesign the curriculum to make sure that it includes playful learning or it supports playful learning? And then teaching teachers, training teachers in playful learning methodologies. The things that you can learn in playful learning cannot be exhausted today. So what I've given today is just like a skeletal framework, right? There's so much more. There are deeper things that go on with playful learning. And it is important that our teachers get to learn about these things so they can include in their classrooms. And parents as well, because we are children's primary teachers in the home before they go to school. So it's very important that as parents, we also learn these methodologies to better engage our children at home. And then we equip classrooms with creative tools, not just textbooks. So for playful learning to go on, in certain situations, you need actual like practical things. Let's say that science experiments. If you do not want to make it abstract, if you want to make it practical, you need certain equipment in the classroom. So our governing bodies or our government can ensure to provide these things in the classroom so that it supports playful learning. And then let's look at some more examples. So an educator teaching fractions, you can use baking tools, you can use the cooking ingredients to teach fractions. So dividing in portions, take maybe 1/3 of a flour or flour, take, compare it, add it to maybe a quarter cup of water, add this size of this amount of salt, sugar, teaching them fractions using baking ingredients. Or parents learning to wash. You can make a game out of washing different parts. So you can even sing washing the color, wash hard or something. It depends on how you can look at it, right? Make a game out of it, make a song out of it, and then it makes them really eager to learn. And then, as I mentioned already, the governing bodies can look at reviewing our curriculum and then integrating projects in experiments. So this brings us to the end of our playful learning experience session. And I want us to end with this quote that learning doesn't have to be dry or forced, okay? When children play, they think, and when they think, they go. So let's keep this in mind as we engage our children in playful learning experiences. And I want to thank you all so much, all of those who joined, for staying through the session. As I mentioned earlier, the chats are opened, so we can put in our questions or thoughts, and I will address them. I think I've stayed true to time, right? Any questions on what I've gone through so far, or any ideas? You can put them in the chat. There's also the Q&A. Any questions? thoughts on what has been or what we've gone through so far. Or you could even share if you have experiences in them already or how you are going to apply it going forward. You're all welcome. And we would also be sharing the recorded session on our YouTube page. So kindly watch out for it on the IIPGH YouTube page. I'm not seeing any questions or messages in the chat, which means that we've received everything very well. So I'd like to end this session here. Once again, thanking all of you for joining and the people who will be watching in future. Remember to leave your comments in the chat if you watch this, your questions in the chat, and we will definitely attend to you. Thank you and have a nice evening.